But Morgoth himself, the Valar, thrust through the door of night beyond the walls of the world, into the timeless void, and a guard is set forever on those walls, and Eärendil keeps watch upon the ramparts of the sky. Yet the lies that Melkor, the mighty and accursed, Morgoth Bauglir, the power of terror and of hate, sowed in the hearts of elves and men are a seed that does not die and cannot be destroyed, and ever and anon it sprouts anew, and will bear dark fruit even unto the latest days. Hey everyone, Yoiston here, and I hope you all are doing well, wherever you are in Middle-earth. Today we are looking at the parts of Arda at the edge of the world, that which kept Melkor or Morgoth out. For the sources of today's video, please check out the links in the description and cards, my friends. Thank you all so much for joining me today. Let's begin our tale. Strangely enough, our question today touches upon the cosmology of the world of Arda. For while Morgoth's legacies of evil would linger on in the hearts of evil men and the followers of Sauron, he would be physically exiled and cast out of the world. Before the reshaping of the world with the downfall of Númenor, which we will return to in a moment, the world of Arda was largely flat, although Tolkien played with changing this idea in his later notes. Just as Eärendil would sail across the sky as the evening star, and the sun and moon, Arion and Tilion who guided them, would cross the sky and move through and under the foundations of the earth, Arda would have this flat shape with geocentric physics, wherefore the planar entities did revolve around Arda, at least insofar as the creation of the world is concerned canonically, or at least before its reshaping. Therefore, in those days, Arda had edges, which were walls, and two doors on either side. Since the Ainulindale, the creation of the universe, Ea, and Arda, was focused on the lands that would be inhabited by the children of Ilúvatar, Middle-earth, and the other continents of Arda, this world would be protected, if not disconnected, from the void of space that lay beyond its stars. So too would these barriers disconnect the world from the halls of Iru Ilúvatar, and which was likely the final resting place of the souls of men in the end. It is likely that the gates, door, and walls were entities either created by Iru himself or in the music of the Ainur and the creation of Ea. Thus, these two entrances and exits were somewhere in the far west and far east places of the world. Achaia was the encircling sea, and beyond them in the west was the door of night, and beyond them in the east were the gates of morning. These were likely named for the directions for the coming of and the setting of the sun. On each side of the door and gates were the walls of the world, and they kept the void at bay, as with those in it. Niena's halls in the west had windows that looked out beyond the wall. These doors were guarded, but would allow for the passage of the sun and moon, Arion and Tilion. After his defeat in the War of Wrath, Morgoth was cast through the door of night, and would find himself outside of the walls of the world for all time, except for the prophesized Dagor Dagorath, which would see the door and gates both destroyed and overrun by the forces of Morgoth, who would re-enter the world and destroy the sun and moon before commencing with the final battle. Again, our conception of the walls, door, and gates come much from the early ages of the world. Yet in 3319 of the Second Age, that would all change when the world was reshaped in the downfall of Númenor. Before that time, some Númenorian sailors would travel so far that they would glimpse the gates of morning in the far east, where the sun would come through. For the world was made from flat to spherical, and Valinor was removed from the mortal trails of the world, for a man would not be able to find that land anymore, and could sail around the world and find themselves in the same place from whence they departed instead. Yet, since Morgoth did not immediately re-enter Arda during the reshaping of the world, we know that the confines of Arda must have stayed intact. Therefore, just as I almost see Valinor as alike to another plane or planar entity of Middle-earth, a sort of metaphysical space almost, after the reshaping, not entirely unlike the halls of Iru beyond the void and world themselves, but certainly not entirely similar, I do see the walls of the world and so forth as a sort of atmosphere, in a sense, for Arda. Yet we must remember that Ea was made up of a blanket of stars and so forth, outside of just Arda. Yet, the void was not quite that. The void was almost a state of non-being. Later, at the end of the Third Age, we can see that after Sauron was defeated, his spirit was made so weak and broken that he too was banished in a sense. He was bound in some way to Arda. yet would also follow his master into the void in some way as well. Likely this is also what happened to the spirit of Saruman, after he was slain by Grima, and the wind of the west blew him away. Thus, in the walls of the world, the door of night and the gates of morning, we have our answer about what kept Morgoth and Sauron at bay after their defeats. When they would eventually be prophesied to give way, the lack of these things would lead to the end of the world and the creation of a new one. And so we come to the end of our tale on these matters. From this story, we see that, just as the walls of night safeguarded Arda from the return of Melkor, we must also safeguard our own hearts and minds against the true nature of evil, to know what we should let in the doors and keep out in the void. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed today's video. If you did, please be sure to hit that like button and share this with a friend. Let me know your thoughts on these barriers and entities in Arda. I think they are a cool aspect of the stories of these characters and the geo/metaphysical barriers of Tolkien's world that just further deepens the lore. If you'd like to support the channel, please consider getting some candles from our friends Mythologie Candles, or order some Weta or United Cutlery Lord of the Rings swords, statues, and other replicas from Castle Kon, who does international shipping, and use the code WEST at checkout, and please check out our merch and Patreon. Thanks to our Valar tier patrons and YouTube members, Peter Shepard, Blair Scout and Merton, John Hume, Elizabeth Calvert, Maz Gibbs, Reese Jenkins, Arthur Merlin, Dale Davis, Kingswald Project, Robert Bogue, Theodore, and Moon Viper. Thank you so much to all of our patrons and YouTube members. Please subscribe and hit that bell button to join the Men of the West and all of the Free Peoples today, and I'll see you all again next week with a video on the great spiders of Middle-earth for Halloween. My friends, thank you all so much for joining me on this adventure. Until the next one.